Welcome to the rant room.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Starks. You guys are tuned into the greatest rant show in all of North America, ladies and gentlemen. You are tuned into the greatest rant show in all of North America, ladies and gentlemen.
In all of North America.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a packed show for you guys. Plenty of shit to rant about, as always, ladies and gentlemen. But ladies and gentlemen, before I get into the show, something I want to bring up. Something I've been noticing that's been going across TikTok. Everybody's been talking about the man versus animal type of thing that's been going on.
Oh, that shit.
And I first came across it, people were talking about, like, man versus dog. They were like, in a death match, man versus dog, you know what I'm saying, who's coming out on top or whatever else. And a lot of people were saying right away, and by people I mean just men, they're saying that, okay, yeah, a man could take on any dog to the death and win. Doesn't matter what dog.
So dumbass.
Kind of a really comical but yet also stupid thing that people are kind of talking about all over TikTok. Because people began talking like, okay, if it's just man versus dog, any dog, every dog, like there are some dogs that you're just not defeating. You know, people were talking about like certain dogs like mastiffs and cargos and things like that. These are huge dogs, weigh almost 200 pounds and have a bite force of almost 500-pound bite force. And you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not defeating a dog like that. But of course, they're asking men this type of thing, like a man versus a dog, because I haven't seen any women chime in on this situation at all when they're talking about all these man versus animal debates. So a lot of men were constantly on there saying, okay, yeah, outside of like the really, really big hunting dogs and all the rare breeds that are big and huge, the wolf dogs or whatever else, most men were saying, yeah, I could take on a dog. But then you had a lot of men on there basically saying they could take on any dog. Like, doesn't matter what how big or what size, if it's a death match, I'm surviving.
That's some dumbass shit.
And people are not taking into consideration the metrics of some dogs. You know what I mean? Like, I think at a certain point when you get to hunting dog, you know what I'm saying, your chances of survival go down. If this is a death match and you're fighting for your life and that dog is fighting for his life, either you or him to the death, most people, they have inflated in their head they're going to be able to go ahead and take down a big ass dog. I wouldn't even put it past like a pit bull or some of these wolf dogs they've had. Like, some of y'all not surviving that. Like the bite force that some of these dogs have, and plus, you know what I'm saying, just dogs have superior senses and agility and, you know what I'm saying, reflexes we don't have. So if this is a death match, I don't see that happening. Because a lot of people were saying, a lot of men were saying that, okay, I would choke it out, like that scene in, you know, I Am Legend, where he chokes out the dog or whatever else. Like, dogs' necks are very strong. You're not going to be able to just go ahead.
In real life, you're not choking out no dog.
Choke it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, in this whole debate of man versus animal, we're talking like chihuahuas, poodles, maybe, you know what I'm saying, a greyhound or something like that. You could probably fight that. But when it comes to certain big hunting dogs or whatever, I don't see that happening. These kind of some weird ass debates.
A German Shepherd?
The most recent one they're having right now is 100 men versus a silverback gorilla death match. People are saying that because there's 100 men, obviously you can take down a silverback gorilla. And again, this is about the metrics. Some people who have common sense, some people who have common sense are saying absolutely not. Because really when it comes down to the metrics, which is like a silverback gorilla is 6 feet tall. It weighs 490. You know what I'm saying? It has the kind of grip strength where it can snap the neck of a crocodile. You know what I'm saying? This thing, they also bite. They have very sharp fangs, even though they're not meat eaters, they're vegetarians, but still. You know what I'm saying? And then when you learn about the metrics of like a silverback gorilla, like it can easily, you know what I'm saying, lift 10 times its body weight. And considering that this is almost 500 pounds of gorilla, you know what I'm saying, lifting almost 10 times its body weight, if it could do that easily, it's
You're not
definitely
boxing with Donkey Kong.
Men. And if you think about the average man is what, 5'10", 155 pounds, you know what I'm saying? If you're thinking about the average man, 100 average men going after a gorilla to an
Your regular ass don't stand a chance.
I just don't see it happening. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about no weapons, no nothing, just plain hands.
You're going to need weapons.
Like that, just nothing to help you. Just 100 men going after a gorilla. I just don't see that surviving. But there's all these debates right now. You know, people are talking about man versus that animal will thrive. And of course, the overwhelming majority of men are already saying that, of course, they could take on pretty much any animal in a death match. If their survival mattered, they could go ahead and take down a fucking crocodile, a fucking bear, you know what I'm saying, a fucking silverback gorilla, whatever. It's stupid.
All that dumbass shit.
And I really wish women would get on this issue, because if they asked a woman and said, hey, do you think 100 women can take down a silverback gorilla? Of course they're going to tell you no, because that's making you fucking sense. Fucking gorilla. You know what I'm saying? They're already strong for no fucking reason at all. But then if they're in like bloodlust mode, or if they're into the mode where they're going to take something down because it's a life or death situation for them, and they're just out there swinging and ripping off limbs and everything else.
They can easily crush your head.
What do you think 100 average men or 100 average women, or just 100 humans, period, could do to a fucking gorilla in that mode?
Bro, it's a fucking gorilla.
And they're saying the same thing about like man versus dog or whatever else. Like, women are not sounding off about this issue. I know it's showing up on their timeline and shit like that, but women are not saying any of the stupid things that men are saying. They're not saying, oh, they could easily take down any dog or whatever else, whatever death match or whatever. But some of these people think like, oh, if it was life or death matter, you would somehow turn to Superman or whatever. I just think that shit is stupid. Like, it's entertaining to see these videos popping up, but that shit is stupid. Like, I don't know. I'm really curious to see where this is going to go. Like, what other animals are they talking about? Like, you know, it's probably going to digress into something stupid like saber-tooth, you know what I'm saying? You know, some other stupid ass animal and shit like that. Did a man take on a shark with a scuba tank on or some shit? Some dumb shit. But I mean, like, that's been popping up on my feed, and a lot of other people's feed. So they've been kind of like, just the overwhelming majority of men are saying no matter what the animal is or whatever else, they can take the animal down if life or death matters or whatever. I just think that's stupid. So I gotta also factor in the metrics. Man's not taking down a fucking grizzly bear. You know what I'm saying? They're built to take down prey. You know, the predatory.
Not fighting no animal.
But that's just my spiel on that, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to talk about that real quick. Let's get into this show, ladies and gentlemen.
Normalize dating within your IQ level to avoid explaining obvious things. I'm just saying, love is cool and everything, but if I have to explain why the moon doesn't make its own light one more time, I'm going to walk into the sea. Like, no offense, but if I say, don't microwave foil, and you go, but why though? We're not soulmates. Okay. It's not even about being a genius. I'm not out here doing rocket science, but once I had to explain that daylight savings isn't because the sun gets tired. That's when I knew God was testing me. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, be patient. Everyone learns differently. Sure, but if I'm explaining what a continent is in the year of our Lord, 2025, this isn't a real relationship. This is adult daycare with kissing. And it's always followed by, oh, don't judge me. I'm just silly. Nah, you're not silly. You're dangerously underinformed. You know, I don't want to debate gravity. I don't want to explain how months work. I don't want to hear you say, wait, isn't tuna just chicken from the ocean? I want peace. So yeah, normalize dating your IQ level.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, imagine if that fucking happened. Imagine if people decided that when they're dating and they're meeting people or whatever else, they were testing that person's IQ, and you decided that, hey, you're not just a little bit smarter than a person that you're dating, you're a whole lot fucking smarter than the person you're dating. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. I really think that we should definitely normalize dating within your IQ level. Maybe we
Man, hell yeah.
Society, in my opinion. But yeah, absolutely. I couldn't imagine having conversations with people where I'm so much more smarter than that person. I can understand that if two people are dating or two people in a relationship and one person's a little bit smarter or whatever else, cool. But if you're so much smarter to where you have to explain a person, or where a person is so much, there's such an intelligence gap, you have to explain basic shit to them or whatever else, like, I don't think that's the person.
That shit would really, piss me off.
Into really dumbass. Pretty sure there's a lot of relationships like going on. People are together and intellectually they're not a match at all. I can imagine the frustration level of being in a relationship with somebody where you have to explain basic shit because you're so much smarter than them. There's such an intelligence gap between you two. That's crazy to be with adults who has like child intelligence. You have to explain that the sky just looks blue or anything, how anything basic works or whatever else. Great. So yeah, I really hope that that's one of the things people start doing lately, and start going out there and, instead of being superficial and worried about how somebody looks or whatever else, like really start talking to people, and then maybe your relationships will work out better if it were intelligent more. And, being concerned about, is this person on your level? I don't think people actually do that nowadays. People don't do that, what I'm saying? With the exception of the man in this clip, what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't do that. Maybe some of y'all could tolerate that. Maybe that's a young people thing. Maybe when you're in your 20s or whatever else, like you could tolerate like a dumb blonde behavior out of any person, whether white or not.
Man,
but I would think
no.
that once you get older, you couldn't deal with somebody just ditzy and you're so much smarter than them and they're airheaded about everything. That would just irritate the fuck out of me.
I can't have dumbass conversation.
Explain shit, something like that. There would have to be a good reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, get out there and date, marry somebody who is, reasonably close to your intelligence, that you don't have to explain basic shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's irritating as fuck to even. And the thing is, that's irritating to deal with people who you are not in a relationship with. Like, just being around people like that in general. You go to work, or you have family members like that, or maybe you got a kind of a dumb friend. He's cool, but he's like, there's such an intelligence gap, or whatever. That could be frustrating with that. I couldn't imagine you trying to be in a relationship with somebody long term or married to that person. Such an intelligence gap where you have to explain basic shit to them. That's crazy work.
Explaining shit to your dumb ass.
I hope y'all not out there dealing with that.
The hardest thing for me to believe is that none of these women went through physical conditioning before they jumped onto a rocket and got shot into space. The hardest thing for me to believe is that though it may look different, some of these women are very, very old, and I'm supposed to believe they just jumped into a rocket ship and got shot up at fucking like 9 Gs. The hardest thing for me to believe is that somebody thought it was a great idea to go up into a rocket at a time like this. The hardest thing for me to believe is that it only took 11 minutes for them supposedly to get there and back. The hardest thing for me to believe is how the fuck do you even have time to get out, float around, look through a window at a moon and at the earth, and strap yourself back into the seat before you start to descend. King, 7 years old, going up on a damn rocket ship, just experiencing G's. These narratives are fucking stupid, people.
So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, space cadets. So just recently, not too long ago, Blue Origin, which is like Jeff Bezos' rocket, whatever else, went up in space. He took 6 females up into space, put them in a flight simulator, and he blasted them up into space in a dick-shaped rocket. And they supposedly, the capsule went up to the orbit, and they floated outside of, out in space, and we're looking at the Earth through the windows and shit like that. They took 6 people up there, and it was Katy Perry, Gayle King, Aisha Bowie, Carrie Ann Flynn, Lauren Sanchez, and Amanda Yuen. They all just went up there for no fucking reason. They say that their trip from Earth to space and back took a total of 11 minutes.
11 minutes.
And this whole thing cost about $2.8 billion. This whole endeavor or whatever else, waste of fucking money. And I'm pretty sure all these people who are on this wannabe rocket spaceship type of thing or whatever else had to put down a deposit. Of course, they got money like that, so they don't give a fuck. Just go out in fucking space.
Should have gave me that money.
Out of all the 6 people who went up to space and everything, Aisha Bowie, age 38, she's the only person who's an aerospace engineer. I understand, aerospace and all this type of stuff has to do with rockets and propulsion and all this type of shit like that. She's like the only one who's the closest to being an actual
6 people
dealing
in
with
one
space
brain.
and shit like that. Like all the other people are like Gayle King, fucking celebrity, and Katy Perry and shit like that, and the other people. And it's just like this whole thing became a whole big spectacle because personally, a lot of people are understanding when they had to lie when it supposedly came back down, like. The capsule looked fucking fake. The footage of it going up, the rocket going up into space looked fake. All of the shit looked fake.
The whole
and then
thing
they had
fake.
the live at the end where the door looked flimsy, like they could easily open it from the inside. And it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a pressurized cabin. And these people went up there just in tracksuits. They had no formal training on what to do in the 0G environment or whatever else. And
nothing.
All this dumbass shit. It just looks like some sort of crazy AI music video or some shit like that. You have Katy Perry up there. She's like playing with dandelions because she's weird as hell.
That
She's not a real
goofy
person. And they're just kind of looking out the window or whatever else. It just looks like a zero G simulator. It looks like totally faked in the studio or some shit. Like, I don't believe they went up to space and back in 11 fucking minutes. But they kind of proved that it didn't happen when at the end, when they had the live, when Jeff Bezos was supposed to go over there and open up the capsule from the outside or whatever else, but somebody on the inside already opened it. We all got a caption. We all got a view of the door, and the door looked flimsy, like you could easily just kick that motherfucker in. It's supposed to be a pressurized cabin. If it's going to go up into the atmosphere over 300,000 something feet, up into our upper atmosphere and out of the atmosphere, so you can see the entirety of our fucking planet from space, which didn't happen. All of this was fucking crazy. But then, obviously, Gayle King, she had this like little, I guess they're interviewing her or some shit like that, and of course it got to be the black woman. She decides that she's gonna go ahead and start saying silly shit like, did you go into space? And this was some
bitch, you got Bill,
or whatever else, because they send 6 women up into space, or whatever else. We were like, we don't fucking care. Like rent's due and shit like that. We got bills and shit. Like we got some shit going on. We don't care about your endeavor. You went into space in your fucking capsule. And women were saying they don't care either. This is not like a empowering thing of women, because like y'all can afford to play around with rockets and go up into space and shit. The rest of us, the rent, you know what I'm saying, we got plenty of shit going on. We don't have time for that. So yeah, this is just a waste of time and money. This is stuff that people with money and connections get to do. They get to get in a fucking rocket and go up to the atmosphere and shoot music videos or take pictures or whatever the fuck they were doing.
All that dumbass shit.
Was up there singing what a wonderful world. And then the shenanigans when they got down from the fucking rocket or whatever, they got out of the fucking capsule and Katy Perry's kissing the earth or whatever else, and fucking Gayle King looks like she doesn't want to look at the camera. She looks so ashamed. Like the look on her face looked crazy. Just fucking ridiculous. Like nobody believes y'all went into fucking space. Nobody cares that this is supposed to be some wannabe empowering and feminist thing that y'all got all these women to go into space or whatever else. It looked fucking ridiculous. And like they kept trying to like push it on to us. And everybody's like, what are y'all trying to distract us? Like nobody cares about this whole issue.
Nobody cares.
Y'all went up into space capsule, which nobody believes y'all did. Y'all got to a fucking simulator and y'all shot this shit, made videos of it. Nobody believed y'all did it. We all know when we get into airplanes or whatever, you go up to a certain amount of feet or whatever else, your ears pop or whatever, it's the difference in air pressure and stuff like that. And we looked at the doors because like it's the crazy thing about posting stuff on the internet like this. This type of stuff goes on the internet and everybody sees it. We seen how the door flopped open when they were supposed to be open on the live feed. They closed the door back up. Jeff Bezos goes over there and attempts to try to open the fucking door with a little fake tube or whatever.
We already seen it go open.
The fucking door. People immediately went to the internet and went to looking at aircrafts. And we see how they have to have pressurized doors on aircrafts, how thick those doors are. You know what I'm saying? They have to be completely sealed. And we look at the difference between a door on an airplane, on a jet and stuff like that, compared to this door on this capsule we supposedly went into space. You know what I'm saying? Like we didn't see the footage of them sitting in their locked in their little chairs or whatever else, going up into orbit. And we also didn't see the footage of them
none of that shit.
Back down. You know what I'm saying? From space. We just seen when they were up there supposedly floating around. People were saying that all of this shit looked odd. You know what I'm saying? The way their hair was floated, because again, we have the internet. We went to the internet and we looked at actual astronauts who like went up to the space stations. I mean, the satellites or whatever else, and we've seen the difference between how their hair floats and how, compared to these 6 ladies, how their hair floated, how they were maneuvering around. It looks like a 0G simulator. It looks like when you go up to a certain height in our atmosphere and you come back down quickly, you get a couple of minutes of like weightlessness.
Man, all that shit was fake.
All of this shit looked CGI. It all looked AI. It looked fake. It looked weird. Everybody was acting weird too. Y'all know Katy Perry was acting fucking weird too. With her talking about, well, I got to see the atmosphere and now I understand how much love I have in me and everything else. Like she's a weird right there.
Weird ass motherfucker.
That whole shit looked fake. They didn't have no helmets, no pressurized suits, no formal training. They just got this capsule and supposedly went out into space.
Joy riding in space.
11 minutes. Timing is also fucking crazy because of course y'all faked this shit. Y'all had to went out there for 45 minutes. They were floating around the atmosphere. Before coming back down, we would want to know where's the footage, what's going on. But the fact that y'all went to space and came back so quickly, it's so obvious.
11 minutes?
People were saying that Blue Origin has done this before. I don't personally believe that. Nobody really believes that shit.
Man, hell no.
I believe that y'all are going out into the fucking atmosphere and space. Y'all just taking regular people in regular suits. No pressurized suits, no formal training, no helmets. The fucking cabin you guys are in that's supposed to be the capsule that goes up there doesn't even look like it can survive being in that type of atmospheric pressure and shit like that. And also we were noticing when the capsule re-enters the atmosphere to go back down to Earth, there's no scorch marks on the bottom or anything like that. The impact of it slamming against the ground. Like all of this shit looks weird. We have a million questions when this shit type of shit happens.
I have all the questions.
Y'all just joyriding around in a fucking zero G flight simulator, and y'all want us to believe y'all went on to the up in the atmosphere into space. Even if you did, let's say this was for some reason you actually did this shit or whatever else. Still, nobody fucking cares. The amount of money y'all put into this little show to do whatever else, nobody cares about that.
Nobody
we're
cares.
literally in the middle of a hostile government takeover. Like, we got plenty of shit going on with this government. You know what I'm saying? Everything that's going on. People have rents due, bills due. We got child care. People are losing child care. We got all sorts of shit going on.
Our constitutional
that we're not
rights.
concerned about y'all hopping on your little rocket and going to the atmosphere. One of the things I noticed when I was on TikTok and people were talking about this type of shit, they were playing in the background a poem by Gil Scott-Heron called Whitey on the Moon. And I really like that poem because he's definitely talking about how, you know, at one point we were supposedly have gone to the moon and all this type of shit like that, but back here on Earth, we're down here dealing with bills and shit. You know what I'm saying? We're down here dealing with rent and shit. While y'all are, you know, joyriding space and trying to land on the fucking moon, y'all ain't even solved anything down here in America. So, you know, that was such a weird thing for them to go ahead and do. Just come back like, hey, we went to space. This is a thing for feminism and women and everything else. But Gail King, she slipped up and mentioned how they were doing this because they wanted to see if they could actually send trash into orbit or some shit like that, which we know they're not going to do that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, space it covers our whole entire planet. Other countries are not going to go ahead and allow the United States to go ahead and decide to ship trash in space, knowing that it's going to hover above our planet and fall back down on some other country or whatever else. Y'all can't just decide to catapult trash into space. Like, that's a stupid thing. I don't know why she said that. Even if they were trying to do that, that's stupid as hell. Like, they're going to put trash into space, dumping shit.
This Easter, the White House is choosing to use real eggs instead of fake ones. This decision, despite the national shortage of real eggs.
They were saying that for Easter, please don't use eggs. Could you use plastic eggs? I said, we don't want to do that.
This year's egg roll will feature 30,000 real eggs for guests to decorate and then use in the games. 30,000 eggs or 2,500 dozen is the normal amount used in previous years. The Egg Board has provided the eggs for this event for years. They often rely on donations from farmers across the country. But this year, we're told that the board had several internal conversations about the optics of using tens of thousands of real eggs, given how the bird flu has burdened egg farmers and contributed to high prices. Still, they've decided to supply the event with eggs, and some farmers have some thoughts. One farmer told us that rolling eggs across a lawn is a waste given the shortage. But another, who isn't able to donate any eggs this year because of the bird flu, says that the White House is in the right and that they shouldn't use fake eggs. This year will mark the first time the Easter egg roll only includes small and medium-sized eggs, which are not sold at markets, according to the Egg Board. Prices have declined in recent weeks, but they're still higher than typical. For all the debates here in Washington, this one is much less likely to be over easy, and instead, much more scrambled.
Ladies and gentlemen, y'all presidents stay doing stupid shit.
Every day.
They mention optics. Your president does not care about optics. He does not care about how anything looks.
That nigga can't spell optics.
You know what I'm saying? We get a lot of secondhand embarrassment from the things that the president and this administration does. And here he is during a egg shortage and the prices of eggs being sky fucking high. Decides he wants to take 30,000 real eggs and play with them for fucking Easter egg games and shit like that, despite the fact that we have a national shortage, price hikes and shit like that, and, you know, bird flu going on and everything else, and all of us, we can't really afford to do all the shit. But no, you don't give a fuck. 30,000 real eggs, 2,500 dozen eggs, just to play with. And then you heard from the clip when they asked them about using plastic eggs, you know what I'm saying, because they're taking these eggs, you know what I'm saying, during a time where we have a shortage and we have price hikes on eggs. It's like, nah, fuck it, I'm still going to do it anyway. Now, he did mention in the clip that, okay, in previous administrations, they've always done that before, but because of the situation we have right now with bird flu and the price hikes and everything that's going on, and because some of y'all idiots voted for this motherfucker because y'all were concerned about the prices of eggs and everything else, this is him playing in y'all face.
Exactly.
Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is right now, this presidency, this administration is like the craziest SNL skits daily.
Every day.
This man just is constantly doing stupid shit. 30,000 real eggs during, you know what I'm saying, a
roll across
national
the lawn.
shortage. We're all dealing with bird flu. Eggs expensive as fuck for the average person. He's like, nah, I'm going to use real eggs. And we're going to use them to play with in a fucking Easter egg game. This is what y'all voted for. Y'all voted for to tune in every single fucking week to the shenanigans and the fucking idiocracy that is this administration. Dumb shit. They don't care about optics at all. And I think that normal people with a normal sense of like common sense but be like, okay, maybe I should look at the optics of how this looks. Even though, okay, you can get the eggs, or maybe they were donated to you or whatever else, you should say, no, I'm not going to use 30,000 real eggs. We use plastic eggs.
That nigga don't care.
That would make sense or whatever else. He doesn't care. He keeps showing time and time again. Doesn't give a fuck. But this is y'all man's stuff. This is who y'all fuck with. This is who y'all voted for. This is who y'all wanted. While y'all struggling for fucking egg prices, while y'all was bringing this up during the election, talking about, okay, well, he's going to bring down the price of eggs and everything else. You don't give a fuck about bringing down the prices of eggs or anything. What he wants to do is play in your face.
Every
That's
day.
what he wants to play in your face. 30,000 real eggs.
To play with.
And not him donating 30,000 real eggs, because the man has the money. There are people there who could have done something, you know what I'm saying, that made more sense than taking 30,000 real eggs for fucking Easter games at the fucking White House and shit.
To roll across the lawn.
Like I said, every fucking day this shit is going on. Every fucking week. I'm telling you. This is why I encourage people, like I said in my previous podcast, about how sometimes you gotta fast from this shit. Because when you get back from your fasting from this nonsense or whatever, the shenanigans and the bullshit will still be here when you get back. When you come back, there will still be more shit going on with this administration.
Unpopular opinion, but I hate when somebody commits suicide and y'all say that was selfish of them. Because why do y'all feel like a person should be thinking about other people in their moment of despair? Y'all will literally be the reason someone is feeling so much pain. You say, oh, they could have came to me. You say, oh, they should have thought about this person and they should think about that and they got a strong support system and they got this and they got that. So many people who love them and care about them. But what makes you think that a person who is at their wits' end is thinking about how anybody feels about them in that moment? It's really selfish of you to be thinking about how that person made you and others feel instead of truly focusing on how they may have felt. And that's the whole reason why they end up in that situation in the first place.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've only talked about the topic of suicide once in one of my previous podcasts. It was called Safe Spaces. Talked about how people need to make safe spaces for other people. By safe space, I mean you need to create a safe space between you and all the people in your life where they can come to you and talk to you anytime about basically anything. Because there are some times when people are going through things or whatever else, and people just feel like they have nobody to go to, nobody to talk to, or anything like that. And that is one of the things that results in people having suicidal tendencies and things like that. Now, I agree with the lady in this clip. Suicide is not selfish. It's your life. You can choose to self-check out if you want to. It's your life. I know people are going to say, well, you left behind, you know what I'm saying, your husband, your wife, your kids, your family, whatever it may be, your brothers, your sisters, whatever else. But sometimes y'all don't understand what people are going through. People are going through immense amount of emotional or psychological torture, basically. People feel like they're tortured. They've been depressed for a while. They're going through whatever they're going through, and they don't have an outlet to talk to somebody about this and work this out or figure out what they can possibly do about how they're feeling or whatever else. And then that leads to that. Safe spaces are so important. We don't seem to have that anymore, where we could just be open to people about whatever the fuck is going on. Be like, hey, you can talk to me about anything. You can always come to me and talk about anything. I would rather sit through whatever you're talking about or whatever else and work that out and talk with you than be attending your funeral. But once a person that makes that decision and does that or whatever else, for us to be like, that person was selfish. They did it because they didn't care about their husband, their wife, whatever, their kids, their brother, their sister, whatever else. It's not selfish. It's their decision. It's your life. And I think people forget that your life also includes your death. People don't seem to keep in mind other people suffering and shit like that. And I feel like people have the right to end their suffering. And I think that when people are enduring physical suffering, people tend to understand that. You know what I'm saying? If a person has a tree fall on them, they suddenly become paralyzed, whatever else, they may want to end their life, whatever else, or they are a terminal condition and they may want to end their life early or whatever it may be, or constant pain because they survived a house fire or some shit like that. People understand that or whatever else. It's sad they don't want you to commit suicide, but people understand it. But when you're dealing with internal, psychological, and emotional suffering, you know what I'm saying, you're feeling emotionally and psychologically tortured, people don't seem to understand. There are some people quietly, silently suffering. They're dealing with something that you don't understand. Sometimes these people may be openly and outwardly happy and joyous, and it may seem like they're interacting with you and everything else, but they're suffering in silence because they just don't have anybody they can go ahead and who is a safe space for them to talk about whatever the fuck their issues are, what their problems is, you know what I'm saying, whatever it may be. And people do die for those reasons. And I feel like sometimes we really got to keep an eye out for people, watch people, whatever. Some people can put up a good face and be like, they're okay, but they're not okay. Talk to them, be there for them, let them know, hey, look, whatever you got going on, you can always come talk to me about anything. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we don't do that enough in society. We say that because it sounds good to say that, but to actually do that, people really don't do that. But I don't think in the end that it's selfish. It's your life, it's your death. You decide that, you know what I'm saying, you are in a situation where you feel like you can't end your suffering. Nobody cares or whatever it may be. And I just think like, I don't feel like it's self. I feel like it's your life, your decision or whatever. And people be sad for the fact that you leave behind family members, people care about you. I think the people closest to them should be monitoring each other, listen to each other, talking to people, letting people know, hey, look, you know, done it, because people act so shocked when a person who's close to them, their family member or whoever, find that they commit a sin. And I know this may be triggering to some people who may have actually dealt with it. Maybe you did find a family member who committed. Being there for people and not just antidepressants and getting somebody some therapy, and you being there, you being the therapy by just listening to them, saying, being a shoulder to cry on, or just being understanding of whatever they're going through, whatever else. That in itself can be suicide prevention. You know what I'm saying, like, people are going through an immense amount of shit for people just to be like, oh, you were selfish because you wanted to go ahead and fight. People have their reasons for whatever they do, and I just feel like it's your life. So you have that choice. You can stop at any time. Like, that's what you want to do. In the history of America, there have been people out there who, once they reach a certain point of fortune and fame or whatever else, the epitome of success, they end themselves. They're done. They're like, it's only downhill from here, from this point on. And they end their lives. Some people have become successful, rich, or whatever else, and then once the economy crashes and they know they're going to go back to being dirt poor and struggling or whatever, they end their lives. Whatever their fucking reasons are. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really need to watch people closely if we want to help people. We want to make sure that people are communicating. You're watching people, because like I said, some people mask that shit. They definitely are putting up a front that they're together and everything else. Like, be there for people and let people know you can always come talk to me about whatever, and don't dismiss people because of, you know what I'm saying, they're crying or being emotional or having an attitude or whatever the fuck they got going on. Like, that's why I made that podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, go back and check out that podcast where I talked about safe spaces. I talked about having safe spaces with your parents. I talked about the difference between having a safe space with the safe space with your kids, because that's important too. They should grow up as a parent and as a grandparent or as a guardian of some children. You let your kids know as they grow up that, hey, I'm a safe space for you. You can always come talk to me about whatever. I'm not going to dismiss you for whatever you're talking about, whatever you're feeling. I'm always going to validate your feelings. That's how you feel. And let people know that type of shit. People grow up without it all the time. Be a connection for people. You know what I'm saying? Call people. Because some people, they just isolate themselves, and next thing you know, there's a funeral coming. Check in on your people, all people. See how what's going on with people. If a person's dealing with an issue that you may not care about or you don't agree with or whatever else, at least be there for them.
Savannah, why do you make everything about race? Like, why are you always talking about race? Like, not everything is about race. Everything is about race! It is! Everything is! Every single part of our society traces back to racism. Everything. The damn ice cream truck song is fucking racist. The reason we have credit scores and student loans is because they did not want black people to live next to them and go to school. Everything is encapsulated in the fact that they wanted black people to fail. Our society could be so much more progressive than it is now. Spent 400 years trying to keep minorities down, that we have not progressed in technology, in society, in anything. This country has spent so much time making sure that we don't surpass white people, that it's willing to cut its leg off during the sack race. Over and over and over and over again. And that's why we're in the fucking predicament that we're in now.
Exactly.
It's not about anything else but the fact that they do not want minorities to thrive. That is what it's been about since day fucking one, when they got to this fucking land. They took it away from people who were already here and didn't stop doing it. I understand that sometimes we want to ha ha hee hee and live life and forget, but I'm always going to bring it up. If you don't want to hear it, don't talk to me, but I'm always going to talk about racism because it makes me fucking angry. You don't get to spend 400 plus years mistreating people based off of their skin tone alone. It caused ripples in generations. You haven't even began to try to undo it. But you want to get mad at me because every time I talk about racism, you get annoyed. Because every time I bring up something, oh, it's because this, it's because of racism, you get mad. Shut the fuck up.
Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, shut the entire fuck up. Let me say something here. Everything is literally about race. Everything in this country, but since its inception.
Literally everything.
So I really personally don't want to hear from anybody who is, you know what I'm saying, white, talking to black people about why we make everything about race. Everything is literally, everything we've ever been dealing with in this country since the beginning has been about race. So you can't go to any black person, any person of color and ask why do they keep bringing up race all the time, because everything is literally about race.
Literally.
And if it wasn't about race, then we would have been able to progress in this country, and we're never going to progress. We're regressing right now because of this institution that we have going on in our presidency.
This election was about
this has to do with racism. Everything has to do with racism. And since the beginning, even with our U.S. Constitution, it was not written in mind to have black people or any other person.
It was written by racists.
For white people. Everything is literally about racism. Our educational institutions like college, all of that shit. She brings up in this clip, it talks about the ice cream song. And just finding the origins of everything, there's racism in that. Even in the ice cream song, nigga want a watermelon. That's racist. You know what I'm saying? The national anthem, when you find out there's more than one national anthem and that they edited some stuff out. Credit scores. Everything. Educational institution. Farming. Everything that black people ever had to deal with in this country since the beginning has been about race. Everything.
The whole thing.
The music industry. Everything. Sports has had racism. And everything has to do with racism. So for people to be like, well, you always talk about racism, well, you always bringing it up, I'm never going to stop talking about it. I'm also never going to stop talking about the roots and the origins of racism, white supremacy.
All that shit.
Everything is literally, like, racism, white supremacy is baked into this country. There's no way to be like, oh, we're never going to talk about it. It's in everything. It's in our statutes, in our policies. It's in the way our government was set up. It's in our constitution. All of that shit. It's in our history books and our schools, everything. And like she mentioned, y'all have not done the work of even beginning to undo all of this shit. Y'all have to first recognize that all of this shit has racism in it in order to even begin to undo all that type of shit. Everything is quite literally about race.
Everything.
And black people and basically any other person of color we're ready to go ahead and talk about it because that's all we've been dealing with this the entire time. We're dealing with it right now. So we don't want to hear from people who never experienced racism about why we always talk about racism.
We don't care if you're annoyed.
We're always dealing with it. There are policies being made right now with racism. During the election, when we were all talking about how the Project 2025 and everything else, and we were talking about all the policies that they're going to be making with this administration and everything else, there was racism baked into that shit too. Everything's about racism. Everything they're doing with these policies, all they're doing is racism. And I know some people are going to say it's classism too and some other shit like that, but basically
it's racism.
It's so that people of color, like black people, for example, don't supersede the white working class, so that we don't get ahead. They would rather fuck everything up so that none of us people of color get ahead than make sure that we all live comfortably. Everything is about race. I will forever bring it up. In fact, I think probably my next podcast, I'm going to make another podcast where I talk about the roots and origins of racism and white supremacy, because we definitely need to step back to go and to talk about where did this all come from? Where did the ideas, where did the foundation of all this even come from? We got to start talking about this type of stuff. We got to start talking about every single institution in this country has racism in it. Everything's got racism in it.
Everything.
And until we recognize it, we're not going to be able to do anything about it or deal with it or anything else. White people are looking right and left, up, down. You want to look away from all of this every time, pretend like it's not there. Meanwhile, everybody who's not you is dealing with it. Blacks, Latinos, Asians, we're all dealing with it. We've been dealing with it since day one.
Because of you, white people.
It's in everything. It's going on all the time.
But you're so smart that it literally triggers people. A 2021 study showed that exposure to superior intelligence activates our threat detection system in the brain. The amygdala lights up when we encounter someone visibly smarter than us, and it's the same response we have to physical threats. It upsets us.
What?
I ain't even done. But when I tell you this tweet alone made so much sense about my life. It's not just a figure of speech when people say that intelligence hurts the ego. It literally triggers pain response, which makes us sensitive. If people feel less intelligent around you, they either avoid you unconsciously, cheapen you to feel better, or try to prove you wrong.
Yes, indeed. This is another thing that has to do with race too, because black people and people of colors, our inventions, our black intelligence or whatever has always been a thing that intimidates white people, that threatens them, whatever else. Because like I mentioned in previous podcasts that, even we have been repressed and had all this oppression and everything else for centuries and everything else. And once we are free and we're doing things now, we are doing better out the gate than y'all have had all of these advantages and all of these.
Y'all had a 400-year head start.
We're doing better out the gate than you have been doing this entire time. Like I said,
and we still better than y'all.
The elections, I don't really fuck with Obama like that, but Obama has been one of the best presidents this country has ever fucking had. And he's our first only black president.
Better than 40 presidents.
Dozen fucking white presidents, and yet we had one black president did better than the ones that y'all already had. But we do that with everything. We get in the gate and we're better at a bunch of things that you guys are been oppressing us and keeping us from doing and everything. That's because our intelligence triggers y'all. It pisses y'all off that we are inventors and scientists and things like that. And then we're smarter and then we just do things better. We're creative and inventors. We come up with all types of things.
And that's why y'all hating.
It really does trigger people. And that really is one of those black-white issues too. Because it's been proven time and time again that smart black people, like the black women who came up with the calculations for getting rockets into space, one of the first black aerospace engineers in history, I forgot her name, but I'll bring it up next time. That pisses off white people. You know what I'm saying? Y'all would rather just, waste all this time trying to find white scientists or whatever else to figure out how to get rockets into space back in the day or whatever else, when we were so triggered by black women coming up with the calculations to send rockets into space. Same thing with black inventors inventing the refrigerator, the stoplights and things like that, all the stuff we still use today.
Everything.
That pissed y'all off so much and it triggered y'all so much, threatened you so much that y'all decided to keep it from the history book. Y'all don't even want to talk about how the filament for the light bulbs and everything else. Just feel so triggered by our intelligence and our ingenuity.
I do not think that it is fair for trans women to compete against biological women. I will stand on that till God come and get me, because it is just not fair. Here is the thing. Create a lane. We wouldn't even have to have this conversation. Yeah. When the Special Needs Olympics, when Special Needs wanted to compete, they created a lane. Paraplegics, they got people with one arm and one leg that lost their limbs in the military fighting for this country, but they created a lane. The women wanted to compete on a professional level for basketball. They created the WNBA. Create a lane for transports and the conversation will be done. Because you're not going to tell me like the story I saw a couple of weeks ago, a little 16-year-old boy in Maine or somewhere was number 172 as a boy and decided the next day that he wanted to transition and identify as a girl, and he was number 4 in that region after my daughter has trained, fought, put in her blood, sweat, tears, and years to be in this position, and then you're going to let this inadequate boy, this is exactly what I call him, who wants to now be an inadequate girl, be better than the biological girls? Miss me with that. I'm from Chicago, West Side. It will never fly with me.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was a trans woman remarking about trans athletes. I think this whole thing about trans athletes really is not an issue. I think you are bringing this up just to have something to be fucking talking about the real issues
exactly
with our country right now. Because to be honest, none of y'all know 3 trans athletes at all.
Name them.
You know what I'm saying? None of y'all know that shit at all. But people like to bring this up and be like, well, they don't want, boys who are transitioning into girls competing in women's sports and things like that. But it never seems to be the other way around, because there are trans girls transitioning into boys or whatever else. I never hear that issue. As far as this whole trans issue, you never hear about trans men at all. It always seems like the boys transition to girls and shit seem to be the issue. Now, she remarks in this clip about how basically just create a lane for it. Just create trans sports and that'll solve the whole issue. And I 100% agree. I do believe when it comes to these issues like that marginalized groups, we all need to just create our own lane and do our own fucking thing or whatever else and stop seeking inclusion and everything. Just do our own fucking thing. And I think that's when it comes to this whole trans athlete issue, is just create trans sports. She gave the example of like the Paraplegic Olympics and like the Special Olympics and things like that. And I just think you create your own fucking lane, because that would solve the whole issue. Now, I don't see the problem with, you know what I'm saying, trans athletes being in these sports or whatever else. I mean, like, who fucking cares? They make up less than 1/2 of the population.
Exactly.
Trans people, period. And if,
cares?
even less are athletes. So if they want to go ahead and compete in a sport of a different gender or whatever else, like, I don't understand what the issue of one trans athlete being on a women's volleyball team or whatever else, what is that going to do? I don't see the issue. She mentions how an inadequate boy transferred to an inadequate girl. He's now in the top 4 when he was 127th on the list or whatever else. I get that. If I have a daughter, you know what I'm saying, who now has to compete with a boy who is now a trans girl or whatever else, I get that. Y'all don't want that in the same thing or whatever. But at the same time, I feel like when it comes to certain sports, and this is why I think should be specific to the sport, whether we should have gender integrated sports. Because I think when it comes to stuff like basketball or whatever it may be, you know what I'm saying, I don't see the issue of why y'all don't just integrate the sport, why we got to create a whole fucking separate lane.
Integrate the sport.
Like, I understand people created the WNBA because they want because women wanted to play basketball in like an NBA level, on a professional level, whatever else, and they created the WNBA. Nobody cares about the WNBA.
Nobody.
Seriously. Don't say you do, because nobody can name 3 players of the WNBA. Nobody watches that shit.
I dare you.
What they should have did, since women want to be in the NBA, just put them in the NBA with men. It should just be the NBA. And if they're playing with the men or whatever else, and they're just not good players or whatever it may be, then they fucking Lakers. And that's what I think they should do. When it comes to certain sports or whatever, just integrate the men's and the women's sports together. That would solve the issue for a lot of stuff. Swim teams, the volleyball, the basketball, just put them all in the same fucking
all
team.
Of that shit.
But if there's going to be a fucking issue where y'all don't want them in the same teams or whatever, you want to keep women's sports here and men's sports here, whatever else, now that you have trans athletes, have a separate sport for that too. You have trans sports athletes and everything else, just separate it all together, solve the whole fucking issue. But I think if you have a high school where you have one trans athlete or whatever else who wants to be on a team, whatever, I don't see the fucking issue. You know, y'all have a soccer team, you have one trans athlete or whatever else, and you don't want him to be on the team for fucking what? It's one of them. It's not 12, 15, 30 of them.
Just one.
Like I said, I think this is really a non-issue. I think people just want something to talk about instead of real issues. Because you're not really mad about like trans athletes or any of that type of shit. Just like I mentioned in my previous podcast where I talked about the whole trans bathroom issue. Y'all don't really care about that shit. Y'all want to talk about that instead of the real issues that's going on in this country. We got better, bigger, more important shit to be dealing with and talking about and that type of shit. Instead of talking about like why y'all don't want, you know what I'm saying, basically a trans woman to be in women's bathroom. Because y'all don't really talk about these issues thoroughly enough with enough common sense and logic, because people are brought up why y'all don't care about trans men being in the men's bathroom. Y'all don't talk about that.
Answer that.
So if you're not going to really talk about this, talk about it. Fuck the issue. Either completely integrate all the women's and men's shit together, or completely separate it and make a completely third lane for all these different categories that are coming out. Have a complete trans separate sport, Olympics, the bathrooms, all that shit. But since y'all not going to fucking do that, y'all just want something to bitch and complain and talk about or whatever else, and talk about that instead of real issues or whatever else, just incorporate the whole fucking thing. Blend all the shit together. Just do that. Because at this point in society right now, I really don't get why we're separated. Like, look, I'll give y'all an example. Listen, I watch professional wrestling. And I know they have women's wrestling and women's their own separate championships and things like that. And then you have like the men's championships and their own type of shit like that. And it's been a while since I've been watching wrestling my whole life that you ever seen any type of intergender wrestling match, anything like that. Because women don't wrestle men, men don't wrestle women and shit like that. They have the reasons for that because some of the men are bigger and stronger, but we all know it's staged. So I don't understand why y'all don't just integrate the shit, because if some of the women want to wrestle with men or some of the men want to wrestle with the women and they're consenting adults saying this is okay, let them fucking do that shit. And that should be with every fucking sport. You know what I'm saying? Like, integrate the basketball teams. Have men and women on the same fucking team. In the
all
NBA.
Of that shit.
Nobody gives a fuck about the WNBA.
Nobody.
So I think when it comes to some of these issues, whatever else, like people, they're focusing on wrong fucking thing. You actually don't care about trans athletes. You know what I'm saying? Because if that was such an issue or whatever else, then y'all would create a separate lane. Y'all would have a completely separate league or something going on, some sort of special sport for that, if you felt that was the case. But there isn't enough for them to do that shit. Y'all want to keep an athlete from just not being on sports teams, bro, because y'all think that one trans athlete at a high school is going to fuck up everything. One athlete. Because like I said, none of y'all right now, y'all top of y'all head can't name 3 trans athletes because y'all really don't care about this issue at all. Same with the people who run their mouth about the trans bathroom issue and every other issue like that. Y'all can't name one situation that's ever fucking happened. So I think when it comes to that or whatever else, either make a complete separate lane for them and be like, hey, this is just for y'all or whatever else, and then we're going to keep everything fucking separate. This is men's sports, men's this, women's this, you know what I'm saying, and then trans that or whatever, keep it all separate. Or just integrate the shit all together. But I think that's also a bad example when we talk about like the Paralympic Olympics or like the Special Olympics, because obviously people in the Special Olympics have disabilities and shit like that. They couldn't be in the regular Olympics. Same thing with people who are in the Paralympic Olympics. They couldn't be in the regular Olympics, you know what I'm saying? But trans athletes can be in regular sports. They're just on a different team. They're just, instead of being on the men's team, they're on the women's team. So that's just my thoughts on that. Because if you're saying that, okay, you don't want this boy to now be a girl and then be on the girls team, whatever else, now he's the superstar athlete or whatever it may be. I mean, to create separate sports and things like that, or integrate the shit all together. I think y'all should integrate the shit all together. I
Just
think
integrate the whole damn thing.
Competing with each other at this point instead of, you know what I'm saying, having their own separate teams or whatever else. Because I don't see the shit. I think it should go sport by sport. It should depend on what sport it is. Like we all know there was a transgender MMA fighter or something like that. I don't agree with, because obviously if you're going to be training to somebody's ass, you know what I'm saying, in a legit boxing and wrestling type sport or whatever else, maybe not. Not in something that's like a real legit type fighting. But like I said, for wrestling, where we know it's staged and they pull their punches and everything, you're consenting to be picked up and body slammed and shit like that. I don't understand why at this point in 2025, with everything they're doing with wrestling, sports, entertainment, why they don't just go ahead and gender integrate all that shit together.
Like all of that shit.
Y'all could have men and women wrestling together. So y'all can integrate basketball team, football team, whatever else. If y'all want to play together, y'all are consenting adults and y'all have decided, hey, yeah, we could have women playing on the men's team and shit like that. Do it. It's really a non-issue. We could be talking about much more serious shit going on in this country than the one trans athlete who was on the women's team. And even if this wasn't a trans athlete, if this is a woman, an actual cisgender woman who wanted to be on a men's team, whatever, would we all be outraged like this? No, we wouldn't. Nope. We wouldn't be outraged about this if a regular cisgender woman wanted to be on a men's team. If a regular cisgender woman wanted to be in the NBA, she don't want to be in WNBA. She want to be in the NBA. She want to be on the men's football team. She trains for it. She's an actual athlete. She wants to be on the men's football team. Would this be an issue? It wouldn't be. I think it's an issue, like I said, because y'all want to deal with trans issues like that. Because a cisgender woman wanted to actually go ahead and men's sports and compete with them on their level in their sports or whatever else, it wouldn't be an issue. If cisgender women were like, hey, they want to be in the NBA. It should integrate sports anyway. But ladies and gentlemen, that has been my show. I'm going to go back over a few things, ladies and gentlemen, because a few things need to be talked about again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's figure this shit out. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the first things I talked about was normalized dating within your IQ. I think that's the first thing you should be talking about when you're out here dating anyways, judging a person's IQ. Y'all should be talking and assessing another person's intelligence instead of anything else that y'all are doing. But we live in a society where people are really superficial. They're worried about how you look, what you dress. People are dealing with their hormones and sex and shit like that. People are not thinking about IQs. I personally couldn't understand the frustration of dating or marrying somebody who's well below your IQ, and you got to explain basic shit to them.
But we live in an idiocracy.
There should be no reason there's a woman out there explaining to a dumbass man something that's because he's well below her IQ, or vice versa. There should be no men out there who, you know what I'm saying, have to explain basic shit to a woman. I couldn't understand the irritation of dealing with it. People should be dating within them. Next thing, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about Blue Origin, which was the capsule that went into fucking space that took 6 females up there. It had Gayle King asking people, did you go to space? But she didn't go to space at all either. Went up there with Katy Perry ditzy ass, who came outside kissing the fucking ground when they came back on the space shuttle.
Was holding a daisy.
How much she learned about love being in space. She's saying, what a beautiful world. And then she showed her daisy to the screen, all that goofy shit. Like I said, Aisha Bowie, age 38, was the only person who was an aerospace engineer, has to do with, you know what I'm saying, aerospace science and shit like that. She's the only person there who was like, as close to an astronaut as you could possibly be, because these 6 people were considering themselves fucking astronauts, which you didn't do astronaut shit at all.
You know, fucking astronaut.
People think this whole shit is fake. I personally do too, because these people got into a flight simulator. There's a lack of actual footage of them going on the inside of this thing, going into space and coming back. The whole trip lasting only 11 minutes. All of this is suspicious. Even the live feed at the end, when they opened the door from the inside, you could see how flimsy that door was, that it clearly was not a pressurized door. Jeff Bezos tried to play it off like he had some special tool to open the door from the outside.
Nigga, we saw you.
Pressurized. Just Hollywood shenanigans. Bullshit going on. All of this shit reminds me of a movie called Wag the Dog. Get a chance to find that movie out. Go find that movie, watch that. Basically, Hollywood and the government have worked together to create like this made up country or whatever else, where they were trying to like start a war or whatever else with a made up country and some shit like that. Hollywood manufactured an entire war country that doesn't fucking exist. Like, all of this shit is Hollywood. You know
Go watch
the
that
moon landing,
movie.
all this shit is fucking Hollywood. It's bullshit. You're not going up into space and coming back in 11 fuck shit. Especially with no training, no gear, no helmets, not even in a pressurized environment. None of this shit made me fucking. But we got low IQ people in the United States of America who are probably believing this shit. Next thing, ladies and gentlemen, y'all president used 30,000 real eggs for Easter egg games despite having a national shortage. Price hikes for Americans because of the bird flu. He didn't give a fuck. He didn't fuck about optics at all.
Y'all
They
never
said
give a
before
fuck.
in past administrations they have done this when we didn't have a shortage, when we didn't have price hikes and things like that. They have used this many. I still think that's atrocious. Y'all could use plastic eggs. You know what I'm saying? Wasting that many eggs, especially during this time with shortages and price hikes and everything else. Y'all president don't give a fuck about optics. Give a fuck about how this looks. Especially because y'all went to the internet and y'all bitched and moaned about how he's going to lower egg prices and food prices and everything
None
else.
of that
Exact
shit.
opposite is happening, right? Farmers are trying to figure out what the fuck they're going to do to survive. Can't get those crops out there, whatever else. We're going to have all types of issues when it comes to our grocery store chain and shit like that. But y'all president don't care about none of this shit. Like, none of that shit. Next thing I talked about, ladies and gentlemen, go to my podcast where I talk about safe spaces, because I talked about suicide briefly, and I talked about how it's not selfish. I talked about how more alert about people around them, be a safe space for them and talk to them, try to get whatever the bottom of their issues are, because there are a lot of things going on with people that you don't know, and the next thing but also I don't think it's checks out. It's just your life. You feel like you are dealing with enough physical, mental, emotional, psychological torment and torture in your life, and you feel like this is never going to end, and you want to go ahead and end all of this. You have the right to end all of that. You can end it at any point. It's your life. It's also your death. You want to just end all of this. That's your choice. And I think people shouldn't have to feel a certain way. I understand that person who ended their life was your brother or your husband or your wife or whoever they were to you, whatever else, but that's their life. People do not want to keep living this life going through the same shit over and over, whatever else. And especially if they don't have people they can talk to or relate to or whatever. Like, people do not want to keep going through that. Some people will rather just take themselves off the map. And I don't feel like that's selfish. That's your choice. Your prerogative. Next thing, ladies and gentlemen, everything is literally about racism. Everything.
Literally.
Baked into everything in America. To the legislature, the laws, everything, our national anthem, the fucking ice cream song, credit scores about racism, the U.S. Constitution. Because it wasn't written for black people, it wasn't written for brown people, it wasn't written for nobody else.
It was written by racists.
Next thing, ladies and gentlemen, intelligence triggers people, especially black intelligence. That has been proven time and time again because we use our intelligence to invent things. We use our intelligence to come up with music and machines and lights and cell phones and filament for the light bulbs and all sorts of fashion.
Everything we still use in society.
Our intelligence threatens people. So it's been proven time and time again that, you know what I'm saying, people who don't have the type of intelligence that we have are constantly threatened by it. Next thing, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about trans athletes. Like I said before, I really feel like this is one of those non-issues we want to talk about. You know, it's a nothing burger. It's something that people just want to talk about in order to avoid talking about real serious issues or any other issue we could be talking about instead of, you know what I'm saying, trans issues and things like that. Because trans make up less than one of the population in America. Especially trans athletes, they make up even a smaller amount. And people, you really don't care about one trans athlete at a high school switching from the boys' team to those teams. You don't care about them at all. And I feel like if we care about this enough or whatever else, then y'all need to have separate lanes for it. Y'all need to create an entire team of people who don't care about having a trans athlete on their team. I personally think that there should be non-gender sports anyway. You should integrate.
Just integrate that shit.
Have women on the team. You should integrate the NFL, have women on the team. If they're all consenting adults and they want to go ahead and be on the same team and compete like that, they should do it. Why do we have separate gendered sports or whatever? I don't know. Like I said before, I personally think that if If this was an issue of a regular cisgender woman wanting to be on a men's team or whatever else, this wouldn't be that issue. But it's the issue because a boy who transitions into a girl wants to be on that team. Y'all want to make this issue. It's not a big issue. It's not. It's one person. Put him on the fucking team. Let him play. With the exception of stuff like boxing and MMA, put him on the fucking team. Just mix the shit together. I really don't understand why that's such a big fucking issue. Like I gave the issue of my personal favorite sports when it comes to like wrestling or whatever else. At one point we've had intergender matches and stuff like that. They should just do that anyway. It's scripted. It's controlled. And the people will consent to it. They decided to go ahead and have intergender matches or whatever else. If they want to do that, let them do that. Stop trying to separate this into two separate things where the women are only going to wrestle other women. If they don't want to wrestle them, then that's fine. Women want to wrestle with the men, and the men are okay with that, and they can make it work. Do it. Same thing with basketball, football, volleyball, anything, soccer. Mix it together. But, ladies and gentlemen, that has been my show. I want to let you all know you can contact me at doomstark7@gmail.com. I want you all to like, comment, share, subscribe to my YouTube page, ladies and gentlemen. Check me out on YouTube Live, ladies and gentlemen. Check out my other podcast that I have, the Keeping It Real podcast with Star. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be
keeping it
an
real
episode of that for you guys, ladies and gentlemen. And that's my show, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.
the rant room.
Paying for natural resources, bitch. The floating rock gives us water, and they're making us pay for water. We're on a floating rock paying for resources, bitch.